Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Gary Harris.
We didn't need a stopwatch to know that Amari Cooper is fast, but it was confirmed by NFL scouts at the Combine in Indianapolis. The former Bama wide receiver, a solid 4.42 in the 40. Not the fastest of the receivers. Kevin White got a lot of play up there, but when you watch how smooth this guy is, combined with that speed, he is expected to be the first or second wide receiver off the board in the upcoming NFL draft. And good evening, everybody. Welcome in to another edition of Tider Insider TV, presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm Gary Harris. Once again tonight, Pepsi Next. All that great Pepsi flavor, but 2/3 less calories than regular Pepsi. You hear it, you taste it, you will continue to drink it. Only 60 calories per 12-ounce can. And that is very, very good. Something else that's good, Rodney, 11 former Alabama players invited to the Combine in Indy to show off their stuff for NFL scouts and coaches. Let's talk a little about the guys that have helped their cause, and really the two upper-tier guys. There's no doubt that both Amari Cooper and Landon Collins are first-round picks. Let's start with Cooper. Now, you know how it is. If a guy tests really well, and he tested really well, but Kevin White kind of went off the board, so now a lot of people are wanting to make the argument, maybe Kevin White's better than Amari Cooper. Maybe he is, but I'm telling you, if it's me selecting a wide receiver after what I've seen from Amari Cooper 3 years, he's going to be my guy.
Well, I know Kevin White's really good. I think he ran a 4.35. Not a lot of difference, 4.42 that was run by Amari. But, we know what Amari Cooper could do because we've had an opportunity to really watch him a lot. I think he's a can't-miss player. Kevin White was exceptional, too. We saw him against Alabama this year, so he's a top-flight receiver as well. But I don't think Amari did one thing to hurt himself.
He really showed just how smooth and fluid he is. Complete player. The other first-rounder expected to be that young man, strong safety Landon Collins, and he put on quite a show. You say that he ran 4.54, 4.53, not blazing, but that's at 228 pounds. That's linebacker size, Rodney.
Yeah, that's unbelievable when you look at him. What was he, about 6 feet?
6 feet, 228.
Yeah, I mean, good size. We know he's a really physical player. He's got great instincts, Gary. Just got a knack for the game, a natural feel for the game. I think that's an excellent time, and he plays pretty fast.
Everybody that's there has said there's no doubt he'll be the first safety off the board. Might be the only safety taken in the first round. The question is, how high will he go? Will he be a top 10, top 15 pick, or will he be near the middle or the latter part of the first round? But Alabama expected to have 2 first-rounders again, and just continues that streak. This has become first-round use since Nick Saban arrived in Tuscaloosa. Well, we know those two guys are expected to go off the board in the early rounds, but a lot of other players fighting just to be drafted or move up as much as they can. Let's talk about some of those guys, and we'll begin with some guys that hope to be drafted. Xavier Dixon, Austin Shepard, trying to make a name for themselves in Indy.
Well, Xavier Dixon's an outstanding athlete, Gary, a tremendous athlete. I think, he had a really good season this year. I don't remember how many sacks exactly he had, but, he was one of the top sack guys on Alabama's defensive front. I think he had a really outstanding senior season. Austin Shepard, just a blue-collar guy. That's the best way to describe him. I remember when he came out of high school, his coach, Bob Sfires, told me, he said, listen, this guy, there's nothing fancy about him. He just lines up every day, brings his lunch pail, comes to work, and that's pretty much Austin Shepard. You know what you're getting with him. He's consistent, and he's going to be a guy that's a leader-type player.
One thing that hurt Shepard, only 17 reps at 225 pounds on the bench press. That's not very many for a guy that weighs 315 pounds. But keep in mind, Alabama will have its own pro day, and most of these guys will retest. In fact, if Amari Cooper runs again, I think he's going to run faster than 4.42. I've talked to some guys here that say there's no doubt he can run into 4.3s. Some even said they think the stopwatch was off, but we shall see. You see Artie Joe working there too. That's a guy, 5-year player at the offensive guard at Alabama. You talk about Collins, you talk about Cooper, but there's a lot of guys that play football at Alabama that find their way onto NFL rosters, and I think we'll see a number of them. There are some of the performances. I want to mention T.J. Yeldon in particular. You see a long-arm guy, 22 reps at 225. That's pretty good. He weighs well into the 220s. Can do a lot of things well. People say he's not physical enough, but I think T.J. Yeldon is a guy who's going to make an NFL roster and play running back 6, 8, 10 years in the NFL.
I think he is physical enough. I think really one of the things that hurt him obviously was the injuries that he battled through, and that shows you a little bit about his mental toughness. Again, 4.61, probably decent speed, not great, but I think when you watch T.J. Yeldon when he's healthy, I think he really is probably plays faster than that.
All right, one guy we didn't mention, but a guy that is expected to be a NFL draft pick and have a chance to play for a long time, Rodney, is Justin Fowler. He had an impressive combine. He is a versatile guy. He can play tight end if needed in blocking situations, fullback, H-back. You can move him around. He can catch the football. He can carry the football, and he can block. So he has a chance to do something in the league. Crimson covers Chase Goodbread, also writes for NFL.com. We ask him about Justin and how his game translates to the NFL.
He's not the fastest guy in the world, but he's versatile. He can play a little H-back. He can catch it. He can he can go in motion. He can do a lot of things. And I know Lane Kiffin's not going to be happy to lose him because he's a good piece to have in any offense. Now, fullback is kind of a dinosaur of a position in the NFL. That's the biggest challenge for Fowler, is that there's just so few people holding the job at that spot in the NFL. Wouldn't hurt if he could pitch in on special teams somehow, but I don't know if he's fast enough to do that. So finding the right place will be key for him.
Our thanks to Chase, who was up there for all 4 days of the Combine. Again, I think Justin Fowler, you talk about his versatility, but at the end of the day, some guys are just football players.
Yeah.
I think he's one of them.
He can do it all, Gary.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about a guy that can block, can run, can catch the football. I mean, he's a guy that, I think he's, and I really liked LaRon McClain. I think he's better all around than LaRon was.
Well, that's saying something. LaRon had a nice NFL career. All right. As players move on to the NFL, there are others aspiring to make it there. In recruiting, it certainly helps Alabama's cause that they have sent so many players to the NFL. And the Tide recruiting for 2016 already well underway. The fourth commitment for the class this past week, Clay Chalkville wide receiver T.J. Simmons. Rodney, I want your thoughts on him, not because he's not a good football player. He played for the Class 6A state champions, had 20 total touchdowns, nearly 1,000 yards in receptions, about 6'2". So, has a lot of things you look for in wide receiver, but did not have that many offers from the power schools.
It's
Alabama
early.
got on him quick.
I mean, it's early. His name really didn't get rolling very, sometimes these guys get rolling as sophomores. TJ just really kind of burst upon the scene this past year. Gary had an excellent year. He had 43 catches, 17 touchdowns receiving, had 3 touchdowns rushing. He told me when I talked to him that Billy Napier, the Alabama wide receivers coach, compared him to Kevin Norwood. There you see, he just kind of has a little bit of a feel for the game. He, made a catch and took it across to the opposite side of the field. I mean, he's got good speed, and they've really got had an outstanding team.
Well, if he's as good as Kevin Norwood, I'll tell you what, he's going to have a heck of a career at Alabama. There are the numbers. One other thing I want to ask you about, Rod, and again, I think his offers are going to pick up, especially now that Alabama has offered and he's committed to the Crimson Tide. I know Georgia is showing a lot of interest, but I know they want to recruit the best players from around the country.
Sure.
But when you've got a guy in your state who really wants to play for you, who is a good football player, I think you need some of those guys too.
Oh, you definitely
I think that's
do.
the history of Alabama football.
And I think
glue guys.
Sure. And I think they evaluated him, thought he was an excellent player, thought he was good enough to play here, and really wanted him. I think when you look at T.J. Simmons, he's a guy that brings some leadership qualities to your team. He's an in-state player. And as you said, Gary, kind of maybe what they call a glue guy, sticks, and he's a program guy. He'll be here and really wants to be here. It means something to him.
And don't underestimate how much it means to come from a top-flight high school program like Clay Chalkville. Last year in Class 6A, they were dominant, and he is a good football player from a really good football program. Much more still to come on Tider Insider TV, including a look at a milestone for one former Crimson Tide hoop star. Boy, they could use him now. But next, we'll check in on the current Alabama team, Anthony Grant and the squad, taking on South Carolina, plus a touching story off the court. I say this about Anthony Grant every week. Class act. You'll see another example of that coming up. Plus, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, your emails, and your tweets. There is the information on the screen on how you can get in touch with us. 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Email us, TITV@WVUATV.com, or you can reach us on Twitter using the hashtag TiderInsiderTV. We'll be right back with more of the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. The one, the only, Tider Insider TV. Stay with us. We're back after this. Former Crimson Tide point guard Mo Williams became just the 4th former Alabama player to join the NBA's 10,000-point club after scoring 22 points for Charlotte against the Mavericks. Mo joins Latrell Sprewell, Antonio McDyess, and Derek McKee as the other former Bama players to reach that milestone. Gerald Wallace is really close. I think about 82 points away. Problem is he plays for the Celtics, and he hardly ever gets to play anymore. So maybe he'll make it to 10,000 here soon. All right, speaking of Alabama basketball, the Crimson Tide, finally an early tip. Normally they've had those 8 o'clock tips, Rodney. Tonight, 6 o'clock over at Coleman Coliseum. So they're playing South Carolina in the first half. The Gamecocks beat the Tide by 2 in Columbia back in January, and this one looks like it's going to go right down to the wire, too. Maybe they'll play first team to 50 wins. South Carolina on top, 18-17. This note, Michael Kessens did not play tonight with a knee bruise, so an already short Alabama team gets shorter in terms of depth. Levi Randolph with 7, Riley Norris with 5. We'll have highlights and post-game reaction for you tonight on the news at 10 here on WVUA TV. And last week, just typical of Alabama basketball, some ups, some downs. A huge rivalry win on the road at Auburn to sweep the season series against the Tigers. Anthony Grant moving to 9-3 in his career at Alabama against Auburn, but a heartbreaking loss to Georgia on Saturday night. Alabama only went 9 of 22 in the second half from the free throw line, and in overtime fell by 1. But hearts weren't just the only thing breaking. Anthony Grant wore special sneakers honoring 5-year-old Luke Kelly, who lost his battle against cancer last week. The funeral was Saturday. The team could not attend because of the game, but Coach Grant wanted to know the Kelly family, that let them know that Luke was in their thoughts, and also talked about his team's ability to make an impact off the court.
The thing we try to give our guys all the time is just different lessons in terms of what they do. They're playing a game that they love, and obviously tonight's a difficult night with the defeat, but so many people either get joy or maybe just a break away from things that adversity that's hitting you in life, and they can enjoy what these guys have been blessed and gifted to be able to do. So anytime we get a chance to teach those type of lessons or to demonstrate that, we try to take advantage of that.
Rodney, as I've said before, if you don't think Anthony Grant's a great basketball coach, certainly that's your prerogative. If you don't think he's a great man, then you don't know him, because he is a class act. And even that honor tribute to Luke Kelly wasn't something that he publicized. He just kind of did it, and then was asked about it after the game. But he does it the right way. I just hope that team can rise up here in these last few games, and even tonight win the game, get into the SEC tournament, and make some noise, because I really think Anthony Grant is good for college athletics.
And I thought the game against Auburn was one of the better ones I've seen them play.
It was.
Certainly.
Did not carry over, though, unfortunately, to the Georgia game. Well, the Alabama baseball team had that great opening series against Maryland Eastern Shore, where they outscored their opponent 36-0. Well, they weren't playing Maryland Eastern Shore this past weekend. They went to third-ranked Houston. Rodney, but they did manage to salvage the final game on Sunday. Had a chance to win both the Friday and Saturday games, particularly the Friday game. They lost a 3-1 game on a 3-run home run. Saturday was a slugfest. But then on Sunday, they were able to get the win, to get 1 out of 3 against Houston on the road. So obviously avoiding the sweep was big.
Yeah, Gary, getting that win was really big. But the thing is, for this program kind of to take the next step, they need to find a way to win one of those first 2 when they've got the game. They're right on the cusp of winning it. Certainly Houston's a quality program. But.
And then that's video there from their game against Savannah State over at the Hoover Met. They're playing a doubleheader. They won the first game 9-2. Second game is just underway, and they will play Louisiana Lafayette in a big series coming up this weekend in Hoover. There you see the update on game 2, 2-0. And they'll have a tough challenge against Lafayette. They're always a good ball club there out of Louisiana. So Alabama baseball off and running, and we're going to watch this team closely. I think they got a chance to be pretty good. Meanwhile, the Alabama softball team got humbled a little bit at its own Easton Bama Bash. The Tide had been running roughshod over opponents, but the Michigan Wolverines took them down twice and took them down decisively. They did bounce back and beat James Madison and also beat Lipscomb on Sunday to split 2-2, and their tournament 1 game was canceled because of weather. Their game tomorrow night against Jacksonville State in Jacksonville has been canceled as well. Obviously, they'll face some tough opposition this coming weekend as well here at home. More coming up on Tider Insider TV. Next up, breaking news on a former Crimson Tide player who's calling it quits after a long career in the NFL, a guy you covered in recruiting. You know him well, Rodney, and we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information there on your screen on how you can get in touch with us on social media. So get in touch now. We'll take your phone calls, answer your emails. We'll be right back with TITV right after this time out. NFL veteran Jarrett Johnson, look at that face. He was always about taking care of business. Has called it a career. What a career it was. 12 total years in the NFL, 9 with the Ravens, the last 3 with the Chargers. He finished with 25.5 career sacks and more than 500 tackles, and to a man, anybody that played with Jarrett Johnson says he was a pro, period. On the field, off the field. And Rodney, you remember him very well. Coming out of Chiefland, Florida, a little bitty small high school there in Florida, 1A school. Only 16 years old when he finished high school. Ronnie Cottrell recruited him. You got to know him pretty well. And when he got to Alabama, he lived up to the hype without living up to the hype. And what I mean by that, same thing in the NFL. He just went about his business of being a good football player.
I remember interviewing him, Gary, 16-year-old kid, had 75 offers or so. At 16 years old, senior in high school, already had 75 offers, and you know, he was always the same. You know, he was focused. He knew what he wanted and was looking for. Committed to Alabama fairly early back in the day. I mean, if you committed in the summer, that was an early commitment. He committed in the summer, held fast with his commitment, never wavered a bit. You know, he had every school, you know, really coming after him hard, but he stuck with Alabama, and he was, I think the thing about Jarrett Johnson, the one thing you'll always associate with his name in terms of a player when he stepped on the field, intense.
Yeah.
He was extremely intense.
You saw it in that picture that BJ put up there. You could see it in his eyes. He came to play. He brought his lunch pail to work every day. What a career. And a lot of the Chargers and Ravens tweeting out today how much they enjoyed playing with Jarrett Johnson. All right, it's time to head to the phone lines for the first time this evening. We're going to talk with our buddy John there in Bessemer. Hey, John, what's going on?
Gary, what's going on, man?
You know it.
Hey, man, I wonder how our defense next year, is our defense going to be good or bad next year?
Well, John, I don't think they're ever going to be bad. Rodney, I do think it's fair to say, will they be better than the one that's from this past season?
I think they have a chance to be. I mean, when you look at them up front, John, I think they could have the best, you know, defensive line in the country. You're talking about Ashawn Robinson, Jaron Reed, Jonathan Taylor, the newcomer. I think he's going to be an outstanding player. Obviously, Jonathan Allen, you know, and many other guys. DJ Petway, I think Reggie Ragland certainly coming back was big for the linebacker core. I think when you look at the cornerbacks, I think Cyrus Jones really made great improvement last year. I think as you look forward to this year, he's really going to be a leader. I think some of those younger corners are going to be outstanding. Tony Brown has a year under his belt now. Marlon Humphrey was redshirted. So, you know, there's a lot of talent, Gary. I think, you know, one of the keys is, you know, what are they going to do at safety? You know, who's going to really be able to step in and, you know, kind of pick up the slack. They've lost some guys over the last few years, including Landon Collins this year, and I think that's a big area of, you know, I don't want to say concern, but it's certainly a question when you go into spring practice.
All right, let's go to Anniston, and our friend Harold is with us. Hey, Harold.
How you doing, guys?
All right.
Hey, my question is about the latest gymnastic team. I watched them. They're really, really talented, man.
Yes,
and I was wondering, how do they go about their rankings? Are they ranked every week or by their total scores or what?
Yes, Harold. It's not by how many, you know, obviously you want to win the meet, but it's cumulative scoring. In other words, every week that particular score is added to your average scores for the season, and the rankings are done based upon the scoring. So you could lose, you know, several meets and still be ranked ahead of a team that had one more meets, you know, had one more meets than you because of your scoring. So they do it by scoring. It's done every week. But you're right, this Alabama team is extremely talented, Rodney. And they went over to Georgia last Friday night and took care of business. They've got LSU this coming Friday night at Coleman Coliseum. And Dana Duckworth in her first season, they have not missed a beat. All right, let's stay here in Tuscaloosa and talk with CB. Hey, CB, what's going on, fella?
Not much. How y'all tonight, gentlemen?
All right.
Hey, Rodney, I know this recruiting thing's kind of getting kind of wild. Is it going to be any changes, or can they just try to get them to commit any grade, age, or what? Is there, what's going to go on with that?
No, I mean, I'm not really sure exactly, CB, in terms of rule changes, what exactly you might be thinking of. But, you know, again, they've talked about an early signing period. Will that happen? I'm not really sure. And if it did, when would it be? Would it be August? Would it be December? Whatever. You know, really not sure exactly what's going to happen in that regard. But, yeah, at CB, they can commit whenever the school, you know, offers them, and if the school takes their commitment, they're ready to commit. They can pull the trigger.
Yeah,
One kid committed to USC, what, in the 7th grade?
Yeah, I was going to say.
7th grade. Of course, he ended up at West Virginia, but, you know, I mean.
So if you got a 6th grader out there that's already about 5'10", 175, running about a 5-flat 40.
Well, that 8th grade kid, Dylan Moses from Baton Rouge, committed to LSU, and he was, again, he was an 8th grader. He was 6'2", 220. It's not your average 8th grader.
No, nothing average about it, but yeah, they're getting younger and younger, it seems, as far as commitments and offers. All right, coming up on Tider Insider TV, Alabama swimming and diving team had a record-breaking weekend. We'll give you the update. And more of your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, the information there on the screen on how you can interact with Tider Insider TV right now. So go ahead and give us a call, 205-348-9882. You can email us, or you can ask us a question or make a comment on Twitter. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide and has been doing it for a long time here in Tuscaloosa on WVUA. Tider Insider TV returns after this. Alabama swimming won 7 titles at the SEC Swimming Championships this past weekend in Auburn. Kaylin Burchell and Kristen Golomiev were voted the swimmers of the meet. How about that? Bama men and women broke 18 school records this past weekend, so they are tearing it up. Good for them. All right, real quickly, let's take one more phone call. Jack in Northport. Jack, go ahead. You're on the air.
Gary, I don't know anything about basketball, but since Anthony Grant teaches so much about defense, do y'all think he might be teaching and coaching too hard on defense, causing us to get lost on the offensive end of the court?
You know, Jack, it's a fair point. I do think they're really good on defense. They need to be better on offense. I don't know if it's a coaching philosophy thing, but yeah, they need to be better on offense because even when you're good on defense, you know, it's about putting the ball in the hole, and they struggle with that. So I think that that's something that if he's still here next year, they need to improve on, no doubt about it.
We talked about better players, or players inside, more size, and we talked about taking the lower percentage shots. It's what they've been doing, and they obviously shot the ball really well against Auburn. From three-point range, they played a little bit more aggressively shooting the ball, it seemed to me. So, I would think, Gary, in terms of what we've talked about, they need to get some more size inside.
Yeah, 46 points in the second half against Auburn, but that has not been the norm. All right, we'll wrap it up with some gymnastics right after this. All it took for Alabama gymnastics to get on a hot streak was a loss at Arkansas, where they fell off the balance beam 3 times. Since then, they have been red hot. The latest win coming at Georgia this past Friday night. They'll host LSU this coming Friday night at Coleman Coliseum. Well, that is going to do it for this edition of Tider Insider Television. Thanks for watching. You can catch a replay of the show tonight at 10:30 or find it on our website, WVUATV.com. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Have a good night, everybody.